So I don't have a presentation about the fellowship. I'm going to speak very, very frankly here. The fellowship is a very new organization. It's very much in the early days of the universe. You know, the universe used to be like a giant ball of like nothing, and then it became a giant ball of hot gas, and it took like millions and millions of years for planets and stars and stuff to form. The Big Bang happened, but I'm not sure yet the first formation of atoms or whatever. I don't know. Whatever the right analogy is, it's still in that early stages, right? So I'm part of the fellowship. I don't know what my role is in the fellowship, but I know I'm part of it. So that's kind of the vibe. But I think that's very exciting. I mean, the idea, I think going back to the philosophies of Polkadot, we need to ensure that if tomorrow parity went away, the academy went away, every single big entity which you might associate with as some like central figure or some important actor in Polkadot went away, that there would still be a roadmap and ability to iterate on and build Polkadot, right? That's the idea. And the treasury is an on-chain way, like an on-chain set of funds for that. And the fellowship is an on-chain source of distributing those funds to technical founders or to technical developers, right? And that combination means no matter what governments decide to do in terms of attacking, you know, different developer organizations, whatever, they can't stop the development of Polkadot. That could give the vibe, right? That being said, you know, I think one book I really recommend. I think I shared a link to some books I recommend if you want to join the blockchain space. But one of them I really recommend is called The Starfish and the Spider. The Starfish and the Spider. Starfish and Spider. The idea is that it's all about creating decentralized and unstoppable organizations. So the idea is a spider, you squish its head, it dies. A starfish, you cut off one of its legs, and 2 starfish grow, right? And so the truth about creating decentralized organizations that are unstoppable, is that they're difficult. There's overhead related to creating these kinds of organizations. They don't necessarily function as well as a centralized entity, right? Like if you look at a lot of the most successful businesses, they have a clear CEO, a clear board of directors, a clear organization, a structure, right? Let me go back to this, and that works very well. Like it's a proven model. But what it doesn't work well against is resilience. That those kinds of models, as soon as a CEO gets caught with drugs or caught doing whatever nefarious activity, as soon as you rely on CEOs or founders to manage their funds correctly, to do good onto the world, you know, that's where things go wrong. I mean, practically speaking, you wonder if these big companies that we use every day, like Apple and Google, if their incentives are aligned with humanity, with like releasing things like YouTube Shorts and releasing all these TikTok ads, and so like, you know, again, I'm bringing some of my own personal feeling here, but like, again, I think it's fair to judge, like, do these people have the actual incentives of our society in mind, right? And you might wonder, you might hear in the newspaper, some CEO was caught doing something and the whole company shut down, whatever. Was that the CEO actually doing bad things, or was that a government that had misaligned incentives with that company that decides to shut him down, you know? Depending on which country you're from, you could actually believe very easily that, you know, these things are happening, under the veil of other activities. So again, central companies are efficient. They are better in many ways, right? But in terms of building a resilient organization, I think you can understand why you might give up some of that efficiency for resiliency. Okay, are we on the same page so far? Okay, so then with that in mind, what I can loosely describe to you is the fellowship, what's kind of going on here, the different ranks, kind of some sources, some links, videos you can watch to kind of catch up. Obviously, I will take questions. That's a very great way to navigate the conversation, and I'll answer as best as I can. But what I can't tell you, for example, is the fellowship is this. You do this to get in. You have these requirements. I don't even know. That it is growing and forming as we speak. If you think the fellowship has the kind of properties that you're looking for in terms of how you want to work, how you want to get paid, the impact you want to make on the world, I think that now is the best time than ever to help formulate that pathway. And the hardest pathway to form is the one you're at. It's this, I've learned a bunch of stuff, how do I start contributing? That's the largest pathway and the most unknown and hard one. As someone who's been in the ecosystem for 5 years, as you get higher into the ranks, your responsibilities and your knowledge of where to go and what to do is much higher, right? But when you're in the lower ranks, this is the thing that we could use your help in helping us form the right pathways. Does that make sense? Okay. So with that in mind, let me just start talking a little bit. Everyone got this link in the HackMD, right? Yeah, so I sent you this link. I'm going to add more to it as we get more questions, but let's just make a little resource here with links to, that you can have and you can look at to play around with things. So the fellowship, it's primarily organized around this GitHub organization, which of course, you know, I mean, this obviously, the fellowship itself is organized on chain, but we need to use centralized parties like GitHub to help organize ourselves too, right? It's obviously not the bottleneck of our world, but you know, this is the reality of the situation we're in. I heard there are projects building on Substrate that will do like Git alternatives on blockchain. I mean, that's cool stuff. Maybe we'll use that in the future. But you can see here kind of three main repositories. There's the manifesto, there's the RFCs, and there's the runtimes. So actually, we've been looking at the runtimes folder a few times now, right? That I opened it up. When I want to know how Polkadot or Kusama or any of the system level chains are configured, I have to go to this runtimes folder. And this was actually one of the big prompts in order for us to create the fellowship. So in the past, the Polkadot runtime existed inside of the Parity Tech Polkadot repo. And that's not good. Let's take a step back. There is a technology called Polkadot. There's a technology called Substrate. These are Rust code, open source, free for anyone to use type things. These technologies are built by and formed by a central entity, Parity. That's the truth. But the Polkadot, the relay chain, this blockchain that you're you know, maybe wearing a shirt of, whatever, this is not that technology outright. It is an instance of that technology, right? Just like you can create your own blockchain picking your own modules and configurations, using this technology stack, you can configure your runtime with whatever palettes you want, with whatever configurations you want, with whatever rules you want. And that's what that is. The runtime folder here is an extraction of the runtime for Polkadot and Kusama. It uses these technology stacks, these open source technology stacks like Substrate and Polkadot SDK. But the rules which define what Polkadot exactly is here. So in my previous presentation, I talked about, you know, there's, you know, philosophies and decisions of Polkadot, right? But the actual rules of if I make this call with this thing and that thing, what will happen is defined in the runtime. All of those configurations are here. So I think, again, I already showed this to you a little bit, so I won't go deep into it again here. But like, remember we saw the spending tracks. There was like big spender, small spender, medium spender, how exactly the treasury funds, all that kind of stuff. Those are specific configurations of a treasury palette, which is a much more generalized, you know, a system. So this is very much that exact thing. And again, this used to be owned by Parity. It used to be that if you want to make changes to Polkadot, that you had to go through a Parity Tech repo, get approved by a Parity Tech engineer, and go through. And that is not the narrative, right? That was it was a necessity for the early days, but it is not in alignment with the philosophies and the goals. So the reason the fellowship kind of existed was that we wanted to move these runtimes into this organization repo, and that people from across many organizations could be part of this fellowship, and they are the ones who have ultimately control over this. So it could be that if everyone at Parity Tech passed away, that it would still be on behalf of the fellows who are in other blockchains and other parachains being able to approve PRs to the runtime to actually make changes to the blockchain. Now, one more piece of kind of safety here. The fellowship is not the people who make the decision about how Polkadot changes. The fellowship are the people who can enact changes to a runtime or to a code base. They can then compile the code, they can then make a WASM, and then they can put the WASM as a vote on chain. But you as the dot holder are the ultimate deciders, right? Like, we can give you all the pieces to be able to, you know, make the upgrade, but we cannot actually enact it. The fellowship itself has no direct executive powers on Polkadot. Zero. The fellowship cannot actually execute anything. Maybe besides, I think there's a treasury for the fellowship. We can spend some money through it. But you know, like from the you know, the core governance perspective, fellowship plays no role in that aspect. That you as dot holders must still interact and make those things go through. Now, fellowship members obviously have dot, so they're part of it, but they are certainly a much smaller minority than the rest of the dot holders out there. One more combination of just tidbits of how fellowship and governance interact with each other. I'm not sure if I described this already, but I think I'll say it again because it's cool. Again, fellowship cannot directly execute stuff, but fellowship is given the right to speed up the execution of the governance proposal. So I mentioned here a specific case that if we made it so that a runtime upgrade could execute in 1 hour, just from voting, you can imagine how it would be easier to attack Polkadot, right? Like 1 hour, maybe people aren't detecting it fast enough or whatever, like that's a scary situation. If we made every upgrade to Polkadot 1 month, so we gave everyone good opportunity to review every code, then it would just be way too slow to patch fixes or to actually repair the blockchain when it goes down. So what we actually have here is that the governance system, by default, has like a runtime upgrade time of like, in the worst case scenario of 1 month. But the fellowship can, using the hash of the proposal, say, we reviewed this, we think it looks good, we allow it to speed up. So they haven't made a decision about whether the proposal will pass or fail, but they are able to make a decision on, we think that if this passes, it's not a direct risk. Does that make sense? So that it could pass in 1 day, 1 hour, whatever is needed, and in the speed. They can't exactly choose how quickly, but there's these curves. But they will be able to basically, in combination with the regular governance, speed things up. And this is the kind of the combination of responsibilities to be able to keep Polkadot a little bit more resilient. But again, I want to mention here, the fellowship has no direct role in what happens, just perhaps like how it happens or the configuration of what's happening and maybe how fast it happens. Okay? So we have a question already. Let's get the microphone over there, and then we'll move to the other folder. So I just talked about the runtime there. Yeah, thank you. And this is very much, again, this in terms of this context, I expect there to be more questions, because I don't have a presentation on slides. I want this to be a question-driven panel, okay?
Specifically about the upgrades, because I asked this question in the security one, I think.
Yep.
When you find a bug, like a big bug, and like, okay, you need to get this as soon as possible.
Yep.
But if you have governance and like everything in place, the hacker can already like.
That's just the reality of the situation. This is why that testing and all the other stuff is so important for these kinds of systems. Like more so, like someone made a comment like this is too much testing. It's like no, we don't even have enough. But there are some tricks, and I'll tell you some tricks. For example, if there's a really big bug, usually there are small circles within Polkadot which learn that information first, like the circle of trust. Again, less trust, not no trust. There are small circles, element groups that will get this stuff. I'm going to tell, if I heard about it, I'm going to tell Gav, I'm going to tell Rob, I'm going to tell a few people that I know who will act good on that information, right? Hopefully they will tell me, right? From that, you can already see key players making this, like being able to identify bugs, make patches, do the kind of stuff. You might even see PRs where, again, we would never have a PR which hides some code. But you might have a PR which underemphasizes how big the change is. Like, we're doing this and this and this and then this thing here, and like something that's underemphasized. And this is probably true for everyone. The runtime upgrade will also include the information, but not emphasize the responsibility or the piece of it, whatever. And then you might see things get pushed through. Another thing that if you did the multi-sig or voting projects, you know that we can actually vote on things like hashes before the data is revealed. So a whole governance process can go through on a hash, and then only last minute we have to reveal the raw data. And that could be another method to obfuscate. Now, of course, if you see someone trying to vote on a hash and you don't know what it is, you should, in general, vote no. That is, even if it comes from me, even if it comes from someone else, that is not a good thing. But you can imagine within certain circles of trust, within certain groups, you're able to maybe contain the information and still get the information out to people in verifiable ways. So there's a lot of mechanisms here, but the first answer is preventative. And this is actually also a key part of our architecture in terms of Polkadot network. You've been hearing about Polkadot the whole time, I'm sure, but you've seen more people wear Kusama t-shirts than Polkadot t-shirts when they're up here, right? This bird. Why is it that Kusama is so exciting? Why is Kusama inherently a part of Polkadot? Why is, when someone on Twitter told me, Kusama is being shut down tomorrow, I think that they are, schizophrenic. Like, Kusama is part of that story. That we never launch anything on Polkadot until it's been launched on Kusama and proven to work well. And before we launch on Kusama, we launch it on test network. And before we launch on Rococo test network, we launch it on an even internal test network. Like, there's like 4 layers of testing we do for every single line of code before it ever touches Polkadot. I am very proud to say that Kusama has only died maybe like 10 times, and Polkadot probably not even once, right? So that is what we want. We want Kusama, this little canary, to be our canary in the coal mine, which is a phrase about, basically dying before on behalf of the miners, like dying on behalf, well, you can search it, canary in the coal mine. But this is the whole point. And you know what's so funny? I see parachain teams who don't use Kusama, and I think, Jesus, we built this whole amazing infrastructure for you, like that you can have 2 chains. You can buy a parachain on Kusama for $100, and you can bulletproof your network. But they don't care. I mean, they just, I don't know, they don't have the right incentives. And there are other chains like Cosmos. I think they're actually trying to build these canary networks too. But these are hard to do after the fact. It's hard to bootstrap, value and release processes and all that kind of stuff for these systems. When you don't have it ingrained. We launched Kusama months before we launched Polkadot, and every single change goes on there. So that's kind of the ways we prevent that from happening. Okay. Microphone.
So just to understand like the position of fellowship, taking as example a proposal that I saw on Twitter on the Polk Assembly being discussed about kind of incentives for governance.
Okay.
And then you was discussing with the guy, and in the end, the output was like, let's, instead of paying the holders, paying the voters to vote, let's like increase the staking reward to incentivize them to lock their tokens for a long period.
Okay. That was a conversation that happened.
Yeah, it happened. So the fellowship would be the entity who will implement that.
Yeah, so let's answer that question, but first let me actually break down the fellowship a little more, because I think it's not everyone knows as much about it, and then we can talk about like with the rules and what exactly happens, okay? I think that's a good transition. So please remind me to say that answer one more time, okay? So the last 2 things I want to show you, so that what you're describing is like the RFCs. I'll get that to the last, right? The next thing I want to talk about is the manifesto. So the manifesto was the first part of the fellowship, and truthfully, it came directly from Gav. This is, Gav's vision for this thing. Of course, it wasn't put on the chain by Gav, but he's an influential person in the ecosystem. He had an idea. He proposed a runtime upgrade. The dot holders accepted this runtime upgrade through a vote, and therefore the fellowship exists, right? I recommend you read the manifesto. If you're going to be part of this ecosystem, you read it really carefully. And what I want to say is that, truthfully, even today, a lot of the, the details in here are very well thought out. Whenever people explain the fellowship in general, it's always a summarized version of the information here. And summarized versions usually leave out either details or meaning. They kind of, to be summarized, they have to kind of lose a little bit of the truth, right? So the truth is here in terms of what the fellowship's responsibilities are, the different pieces and groups and the audience and goals and what the responsibilities are. So like here, there's very specific responsibilities of what the fellowship does. It is not supposed to be for everyone. Just because you're developing in Polkadot does not mean that you should be part of the fellowship. This only targets a specific set of technologies on which we think are very core to the core of the Polkadot blockchain. There are other fellowships that want to exist. There are ideas of like, marketing fellowships or maybe front-end fellowships or, whatever, like maybe education fellowships, like who knows what other ideas. But this specific fellowship is around these technologies. So there is a spot for you to contribute to Polkadot in open source ways and get paid through the treasury and stuff, even if you're not in these organizations. But specifically, if you're in the fellowship, you're working on one of these technologies. Yeah,
so is the fellowship the first collective? So these other collectives would be like these groups that would focus more on like law, marketing, other stuff?
The fellowship is the first of its kind, which is an on-chain organization which will directly receive a salary from the Polkadot.
The engineers of the stuff, but then would have like another entity, collective for like marketing or?
There could be. Again, it depends. First, it depends on someone to create a manifesto, for someone to propose a runtime upgrade, and for that to be accepted by dot holders, right?
But the idea is to be like specific engineers for the Polkadot, right?
In many ways, the idea is how can we provide employment to people to push forward Polkadot? And employment is a very specific word here. That you can already get treasury proposals and grants given to you, but it's not on a consistent basis. The fellowship is an organization specifically around you do monthly work, you get monthly salary. And this is, if you are sick 1 month, right? This is the kind of thing the fellowship can handle. Like they can pay you and they can do basic human things that employment can handle. A treasury proposal is not flexible in that way or is not organized in that way. So this is it's a different kind of organization, and there could be more people who want to take advantage of that. But there has to be a clear again, a clear incentive for what their impact onto Polkadot will be. And because, again, everything is open and everything is like kind of open source and collective and decentralized, it needs to be measurable, which is the hardest part about a lot of organizations. It's hard to measure, for example, the impact of certain rules. I think as a developer, the measures are much more kind of concrete at first, as a starting point. Okay, anyway, let's go a little bit. So there's technologies and stuff like that, and then eventually there's entry and ranks. So they have these ideas. So let's go and look at this web page where we can see the ranks. So you can see here, the fellowship currently has in Polkadot, there's also a Kusama fellowship, but in Polkadot, 68 members. A bunch of them are rank 0 or rank 1. There's some rank 2. There's only 3 rank 3. This is Robert Habermeyer, Basti, and Gav. And then we have some rank 5s, and then some rank 4s, etc. So I'm a rank 4 on this in this fellowship, alongside Keon and Brian from Akala, stuff like that, okay? If you again look at the manifesto, they describe the different ranks and the responsibilities of that rank, right? So let's see if I can go here. So each level, and this is broken down in the idea of like black belts. I don't know if you're familiar with Taekwondo. You go to a black belt, you have already achieved a certain level of mastery. But if you know enough about martial arts, your actual mastery begins at black belt level Dan 1, right? You're actually starting and your real goal is to get to Dan 10, right? So this is very much that idea that you have these different Dans, and you start off as a candidate rank 0, you get in as a humble, and then you move your way onto the Grand Master. And no one is Grand Master. The highest rank so far right now is Grand Architect. And the idea in general is that it should be about, 1 year, maybe even more. It says up to 19 years to actually achieve this, right? So that is kind of a scale, like almost for the early years, for the number of years you're that you've been contributing to Polkadot is basically kind of equivalent to what you should be aiming for in terms of your rank, right? I do believe it is one of the goals of Polkadot, or of the Polkadot Academy, to have people in this academy join the fellowship. I do think in a very rough level, if you graduate with distinction or you have really, really great scores on these things, that you probably are set up to be at that rank 1 level. Like probably you could find some PRs and stuff to do and contribute to. If you don't make it to that hyper distinction reward, that's not a bad thing. It just means you're on a different point of your journey. The goal of everyone here eventually is to become a contributor. But as you all know, you come into this academy, everyone starts with a different foot. Some people here have already been working with Substrate for more than 3 years. Some people here have learned about blockchain the first time 2 weeks ago, right? So this is not meant to be like gatekeeping. It's meant to be just identifying where you are in the journey, right? Part of this process. And so, I do hope that if you believe that in this kind of process, that everyone will make their way, again, to these rank 1s and then follow the fellowship through. But what I'll say is this, that a poor way to be introduced to Polkadot is through disorganization. The worst thing to do is you got out of the fellowship or got out of the academy. You're like, what do I do next? You go into this organization and they are still forming themselves, right? That's gonna bring you down. I really do think one of the best things you can do out of the academy is try to get a job in the ecosystem. Working for a company, working for a team, getting yourself maybe in that organization up to rank 3, and then that's probably a good signal for when you might be able to go off on your own. And this is in alignment actually with some of the salaries. So I'll just jump over here. So we just recently introduced salaries to these different ranks. Oh, before I go on, okay, let's pause. Sorry. Can we bring the mic? Right behind you. Yes,
So
bring
you're
it to the
saying,
middle.
your advice is to go out, get a job somewhere, like in the ecosystem.
I think so.
And then as you do that, you contribute to the ecosystem, to
The parachain or ecosystem or Polkadot or whatever. Yep.
and through that, you would basically make your way into.
I think so. So one thing that's important is that contributing to a parachain directly may not imply work that helps you towards the fellowship, but making the changes to parachains which push back stuff to Polkadot, like you're making improvements to APIs, you're making improvements to palettes, you're making CLI tools, all that kind of stuff. That all is stuff that you could work in a team and still increase your knowledge and rank in the fellowship.
So the equivalent for the generic open source world that we know, it's like you work for a company, whatever, and you build an
Contribute
SDK,
back, exactly.
something library, and you make it public. And
I think I don't think the fellowship's been around long enough to know, but I'm pretty positive every parachain team would be very ecstatic to have people who spend their time in the parachain team working on the fellowship. It's great to have, like, like Akala has a level 4 who's the CEO of their company. These are nice things to show off, right?
So in principle, there needs to be like a common interest for the fellowship and any X company that you work for.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously, you shouldn't be. It's not freeloading. What is it called when you work on the side? Like, you shouldn't be hiding from your company that you're working for the fellowship.
Side hustling.
I don't know what the word is. I forgot.
Side hustling.
But anyway, so yeah, you shouldn't be freeloading off of this company, right?
Yeah.
You should be working within a contribute. But this is the best way again. And it doesn't have to be you have to join a company and like wear a suit and go to work every day and punch on it. Like, what I really mean is like find a mentor, right? Companies are incentivized mentors. They will mentor you so that you give back and work on the thing. The fellowship is kind of hard because it's much more decentralized and open and a little chaotic, and there are already people who are just individual contributors. Like, it's not the best place to necessarily find a direct mentor. But if you work for a company, they have a goal in mind. They have a task for you. They have things you want to learn, and you yourself will be able to walk yourself through learning that process. So that is honestly my current perspective on the best way to navigate. And I want to say really quickly, I want to mention the salaries. So there are salaries for these different roles. The levels 1, 2, and 3. Well, maybe 3 gets to it, but level 1 and 2 I think is like $10,000 a month and $20,000. No, $10,000 a year and $20,000 a year. So it's already obvious in the salaries that number isn't enough to be a full-time job. So, but that number is perfect as an extra little bonus on top of a normal salary, right? Once you get to level 3, I believe it's $100,000 a year, 120, 140, it goes up from that, and that is a pretty reasonable full-time salary for most first world countries. And in that context, you can imagine, again, that's where, as a level 3 fellow, I could actually step away from an organization and fund myself. But that's also that now you've been 3 years in the ecosystem, you've proven yourself as helpful, you have a task in mind. Like, this is a very natural mechanism. And I want to mention one last thing here. It's taking a step back from the Polkadot and fellowship, in terms of when you guys design palettes, when you design behaviors, how awesome is it, right? These numbers are configurable. How much salary we give. There's nothing that says when you're level 3, you leave your company. But you can create incentives by adjusting those numbers, right? If the rank 1 was $100,000, right? That's kind of the incentive saying that you work this full time. But because it's 10,000, it's saying you must find another job, right? It's not going to keep you alive. But once you get to rank 3 and we have the 100,000, that says now you can work full time. You can imagine again, when you're building blockchains, it's all about creating, you cannot control behavior. You can only create incentives which incentivize rational actors to act certain ways. So it's those kinds of little configurations you can imagine that actually affect, how your community, organizes itself. Okay, so continue.
I didn't have.
Okay, great.
Just to clarify, you're saying the 100K is starting from fellow?
Yeah, this is on the RFC. So maybe I can look at that. So
RFC 50.
yeah, RFC 50.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Let's go into that. So RFC, I go here. So that next thing I'm talking about after so I would say everyone here should, read the manifesto at night, just get your thing out and read. So that's a good starting point for what's actually happening. And then finally we have RFCs. This is where the actual work is being done. The fellowship, everyone's familiar in general with RFCs, right? Basically, anyone in the fellowship, even anyone outside the organization can create issues or pull requests in this thing. And then the fellowship's responsibility is to review that, give feedback, and potentially implement it if needed. That's like the whole thing, right? But here, so let's look at one RFC, which is, salaries. And you can see here, I guess the way that the RFC is formed is that we will find some average full-time salary in a OECD country. I guess that's like some kind of similar acronym to First World or something like that. And then you can see that the rank is based on a multiplier of that salary. Right? So that's kind of, and this scales over time, right? So in 100 years, we can still look back at this RFC and even based on inflation, be able to apply this. These are like, again, we're thinking about the future, we're thinking about an evolving society. This, I think, is a reasonable thing. And this could update too if needed, right? You also see there's a heavy plateau, right? The incentive once you're rank 6 is not to make more money in the context of a salary. It's that you are probably individually invested in the success of Polkadot, right? So, you know, you're not going to live a better life, or you're not going to be expected to get a better life or extract more money out of Polkadot in that way, right? Okay. So this is just one thing, the salaries. There's other RFCs. RFCs, I think I shared RFC related to the boot nodes, right? I gave that. Oh, sorry, this is the manifestos. Let's go back. There's a bunch of RFCs that are still open. There, 141 comments on this. 83 comments. Like, this is the place where if you want to know what the cutting edge of stuff is happening, you just spend some time reading this. This is where the alpha is. It's months after this that you start seeing an article or a YouTube video about anything. Like, this is where ideas are formed. This is where the people are gathering. This and the Polkadot forum. They're a combination of two places where there's a lot of information. But the Polkadot forum has a slightly different audience, as you can imagine. Right, the conversations are quite a bit less technical, but still, very much have a spirit or some kind of, feeling in mind. Here is much more technical, but it captures solutions to many of those spirits or problems, right? Okay, so now another pause. So I gave you the basic rundown of the Polkadot Fellows group. There's these things, and then finally, I guess with the RFCs. Again, RFCs, they can be produced by people outside the fellowship. They must be reviewed and approved by people in the fellowship. And then there's no guarantee that any RFC is fully reviewed or that any RFC is immediately turned into a PR. Like, there's no guarantees around this. The only guarantees are if you're in the fellowship, you must every month show evidence of work you've done. So as you click that button to get pay my salary, I think you include a hash or you include like a VEC or something, which is a justification for why you should accept that salary. And of course, it's all public, so anyone can audit and say, well, Shawn for the last couple months have been sending the same thing, but I haven't seen any results of that. We should question him and all kinds of stuff. So you can imagine that there's a little bit of point of maybe someone can grift the fellowship for a little bit of time, but not for long. And even to get to the rank where you're actually being able to grift it for a significant amount of money, it takes a while, it takes years, right? So this is not really a and voting. What about voting? I'm sorry. Oh yeah, to be able to increase into the rank, you must be voted for by someone in the fellowship who is 2 ranks higher than you. And then if there's no one in the fellowship who's 2 ranks higher than you, the only way to get upgraded is by a vote of all dot holders. So all rank 6 dot holders, all rank 6 fellowship members, even rank 5 fellowship members, they can only level up, because there is no rank 7, they can only level up by a full dot governance vote, which is very cool. Me as rank 4, I could become rank 5 if Gav, Basti, and Rob like me enough. Right? Okay.
So just to reiterate, so the RFC is basically where people, where there would be like proposals for.
Yeah. You want to read one? Let's just read one. Let's just I mean, I kind of want to show court time. Like this is Tommen. No. I want let's find a Gav one. Is there any Gav ones? Probably already closed. Gav of York. Core Jam. Okay, this one's closed. But okay, anyway, we'll just look at it anyway. So there's this thing called Core Jam. Where did that word come from? It came from this PR. Like, it came from this issue with this proposal. And you can see here, inside of the pull request, it's a single file. It's a README file. Let's look at the nice view of it. And it has like a very technical, in the same person who wrote the Ethereum yellow paper, writes a very technical explanation of the requirements, stakeholders' explanations, what they want to do, potential pseudocode on how it might be implemented, the trade-offs. This is a lot of words here and a lot of structures and ideas of formulating. So when you go to an RFC, it can't just be like, I want fees to be lower. Let's all agree that we want fees to be lower. That's not a solution, right? You need to be like, I'm proposing these specific changes for these things with these benefits and these trade-offs and these things. It is very much, again, making very good decisions, right?
My question is so the RFCs, there's pull requests basically.
Yep.
The pull request is stating what you want to happen, right?
Yep. With a.
And then is the process you merge it and then it's.
Sure. No. So it's right here. So here's an example. So here's one that got merged. So Joe put a proposal for a minimal relay chain. This RFC describes the want that over time we're going to extract pallets out of the relay chain and put them in their own system parachain. Okay. So he put this file. He put some things. We had some code review. These are people in the fellowship. They are reviewing the code, doing back and forth feedback. I think I'm even part of this conversation. You can see here there's closed comments by me, by Jeff, by XLC, etc. And eventually, Rob is on this here. Eventually you get to a point, Gav is talking about it, something, whatever. Eventually you get to the point, oh man, a lot of conversation, right? I mean, these things are not easy. This process is not meant to be easy, right? But eventually you get to the point where we're in agreement. There were some approvals, I guess. In this case, the approval happened on chain. We approved this RFC through an on-chain vote using the fellowship, and then a bot goes and finds the evidence of the vote on chain and only merges as a result of that. So this was only merged because there was an on-chain vote. The fellowship liked it.
So this then merged the proposal, basically.
Yes.
And then someone goes and picks up the like, how does that then turn into a PR
In Polkadot.
Someone just like a...
Yeah, usually if you're the one who's proposing it, you're kind of the one who's also like on the hook for finding someone to do it. Usually yourself, but if not yourself, like leading team. So Joe leads a team of people whom are working on this. So before he tells his team this is what we're gonna do, Joe isn't the decider of what we're gonna do. This process is the decider, and this allows him to help lead his team.
So to compare to like a normal Web 2 Scrum process, let's say. So this is kind of like the grooming, let's say, and then
Sure.
And then you have a forever sprint.
Yep.
And so basically the issues or features are in the RFCs.
Yep.
And then at some point someone picks it up.
Yep.
And creates a branch and pull
But
request.
exactly, and this is the thing, like every single point of this is like someone does it, someone. It's like it's very loose, and this is why I can't wholeheartedly recommend you leave this academy and join the fellowship. It's just like it's too loose for I think the level of knowledge that you have out of this academy. I think you need to work with a company. You need to have like your own in onto these things, and you build up your own understanding of the systems and what needs to be done, and then you can start contributing kind of on your own.
So basically, like there aren't like I guess due to the nature of like the strictness of making any changes, there aren't any like small tasks like do this, do that, like kind of.
Yeah, so the fellowship isn't going to be the place where you're going to find like like a small patch thing. Instead, you're going to look at the repo, and there should be issues tagged with like good first issue. So if I go to, can you there's a question back there, so let's pass that over. But I'll show you. If you go to Polkadot SDK, and you go to issues, there should be tags like a label, first, or new, or good. Oh, easy. There's like things tagged easy. That would be like a great place to start to do some stuff, right? I put a PR into one of the chats about like how we want to move all of the palettes from the currency trait to fungibles trait. That's an issue that everyone here can do because you all have now experience with the fungibles trait, right? So these are like, but you won't find this in the fellowship. Fellowship is not at this level at all. Fellowship is much more about direction and like big goals. Like one fellowship RFC would probably turn into like a whole dashboard of issues in something like this in Polkadot. This is Polkadot SK. This is directly where you get like the individual issues that you could contribute to or you could help with. Yeah, your question.
Shawn, this is related to something we spoke a bit a while ago. But how does the academy protect against the, malicious actors from just like signing in? What's the solution for the entity on this?
The academy or the fellowship?
The fellowship.
So how does the fellowship prevent against malicious actors? Like getting in. So yeah, so this is it's a reputation system, and it's more than a reputation system, it's a merit system. So it's not like you can get to level 3 having just been smiling and being like really cool the whole time. You must, for the last 3 years, have made significant contributions to Polkadot, right? So if there is some kind of really long con person, they could probably, do something weird, but they alone don't have the power, right? They're just one vote among other people in fellowship.
You may remember where I'm getting from with this question. Because,
No, I don't remember.
This is the idea I was talking to you before for the assignment 4, where we literally were trying to like propose another merit system. So I just wanted to like hear your thoughts on how that could like be avoided here, not on the one we talked about.
I think, all right, so let's talk about the highest philosophy. If you want to prevent malicious actors, you must make the opportunity cost much greater than the reward. That's just the high level idea, right? If I can flip a coin and one flip I'm going to make, $1 billion and one flip I die, like maybe I flip that coin. Like that coin is like a pretty good opportunity cost. But if I flip that coin and it's, one I get $10, the other one I die, that's when I never touch that coin ever, right? So it's the situation where like if I invest 4 or 5 years and then I make one bad vote or I do one bad malicious thing and now I'm kicked out of this like nice salary and good work, like the coin flip looks pretty nasty, right?
And the other one is identity. How do they have to like dox themselves?
No, actually, no. The fellowship fully works with anonymous accounts. I believe there are some anonymous accounts already. Now, you do need a GitHub handle, or you need some way to be able to point back to which Git pull request you're making. But if you're able to, sufficiently anonymize yourself, like maybe like every time you connect to Git, use a VPN, maybe every time you do this, there's no need that you have to show your face.
You said that after a while, the monetary incentive like stops, like it plateaus.
Yeah, that's what
What's stopping someone from just making multiple anonymous accounts and just raking in all the money?
Yeah, the perfect answer to that is that the requirements of these roles is a full-time job. And as your rank increases, your expectations are also increased, right? So if you are able to be if you're able to be multiple level 3 full-time engineers level quality of work and get away with it from the fellowship, then like you deserve that double pay, man. Like good for you, Like it's about output.
All right.
It may not be perfect. Like I can imagine not everything is perfect, but like this, I think the things are in place to make it work. And the best thing about a modular, upgradable, evolutionary blockchain is as soon as you find an attack vector, we'll patch it.
Yeah.
Were you?
Questions on the,
I think he was first, but then you next. Okay.
yeah, my question's on the getting into the fellowship. Like,
Yes.
At first, when it was incubated, you were like choosing based on the contribution.
Yes.
Now it's kind of like choosing in the PBA. But what if someone is not from PBA, but is doing outside contribution, right, meaningful ones? Is there a regular way to get in, or it's kind of like on a courtesy of one fellow to propose that person to kind of get into the fellowship?
Right. So let me touch on 2 things here. So first, I want to touch on the initial seeding. So there's a repo here called seeding. And this was a repo where all the initial fellows were introduced. So if you see here, these were the initial fellows, their rank. I'm here on this list. And you can see if you click my link, every single one of these users, oh, that's just me. Sorry. Somewhere in here, I should have a PR where every single person who was in that initial seeding, let's find my author, Shawn, had to describe why they believe they should be a certain rank and have to be approved by others. So I said, my name is Shawn. I've been working in prepared technologies for 4 years. I've contributed in these ways. Here are a bunch of links to tutorials I've written, frame development, PRs I've done, contributions that I've done directly, DevX and tools, presentations, evangelism, YouTube videos, etc., organization level stuff, like all that stuff. So using this was the basis of showing like, okay, how much time I've worked, my PRs I've contributed to, like the big projects I've owned, and then approvals from people who are in the fellowship to get me in. So that was the initial thing. It's not like this anymore, right? This was just to seed the initial group. I don't even know how many people were in the initial group. Obviously not 68. It is looking like, I don't know, someone can count that. It's like 30, okay, 30. But nowadays, when you want to join the fellowship, the high-level process is, I believe anyone in the fellowship, anyone, can recommend someone else to be rank 0, a candidate, right? So, if I would be happily honored to have anyone here, I put them as rank 0, okay? That doesn't mean you're in the fellowship yet, but to have you be available in the process. And then to go from rank 0 to rank 1, you have to look at the RFC guidelines, or the manifesto guidelines, and be able to show some contribution or whatever, and show how you're gonna, that you've done good work, and that you'll get to rank 1. But there is a requirement that you've already done some work, or you've shown competency before you get to rank 1. But again, I think I would feel absolutely comfortable. Literally anyone in this room wants to be rank 0, I can seed your process, and that's true for anyone else that you know in the academy. Now get in, right? Okay. It's this microphone here and then there. Okay.
So you said if you're a really high rank, you need everyone in DOT to vote yes, right?
Yes. So if you need at least, if there's not someone 2 ranks above you, you must have the DOT holders.
So if you are already very high rank, someone wants to demote you, do they also need everyone to vote yes?
If they want to what you?
Demote. Like let's say
Demote you.
Like let's say you get really high rank, you're like, okay, well I'm rich, I don't need to work anymore. And
Yeah, demotion. So that's a good question. The demotion process. So if you do not submit that proof of work, ever like the text thing, I think you get automatically demoted. There's like, you know, like you'll get like ping like, oh, you haven't submitted any proof. There's a phase in the fellowship where you can turn yourself as, oh, you know this? What do you want to do? Discord.
By default, fellows actually get demoted every 3 months or something.
Yeah.
There is like some different rules for different fellow members. So you have to keep re-justifying why you deserve to be in that rank or why you deserve to go up. You
But-
can't just be passive and.
I'll add to that though, like there is a thing in the fellowship where you can freeze yourself or snooze yourself. Like if you're taking like a couple months off or like whatever, and you don't want to be part of this process, you can say I'm taking some time off, and then I think your position is locked in. But as long as you're getting paid, you have to justify to yourself every period why you would stay that rank. And again, this is not, again, one of these things is this cannot be proven on chain, right? So the chain is just used as a source to facilitate information moving, that humans have to be involved to actually go and demote people if they, or like not demote, but I guess like not accept people's proposals if they want. Yeah, I guess it's reapprove. Yeah, okay, yes, you have to reapprove them. So you have to get people literally voting yes, yeah, yeah. And again, you can imagine all these things are all configurable. Like you all built palettes, you can imagine how you could design the system the way you want. Can we get there's a question here? No? Question here? No? Then a question over here.
So my question is, I have a couple of questions. First is about activity. So on the table you was ranking about humble, fellow, and so on. There was activity, and it goes from 100 and reduced with rankings. Can you comment on that?
So I'm going back to the manifesto, and somewhere in the manifesto there was something about 100. What was 100?
No, in manifesto there is a table.
Yeah. Okay. There's a
with
table.
Explanation of rankings.
Yep. The Dan 1, Dan 2, etc. Okay. That's
So
here.
in that table there is an activity which is reducing over time.
I think this is. I have to look at this thing. I mean, obviously, even hard. So, the best way to learn about this stuff is to read it. But you can see here, like material. The idea, like this, you know, Gav was having fun. I think he found different materials. All of them are black, and they're all increasing in hardness. So a mo is a measurement of hardness, and so the hardest thing is carbodanos or carbandos, which has 10 mo. And then the weakest thing is like graphite, which I guess used on pencils, which is very soft, right? So there's some things here. Activity, what is that? What does that represent here?
Less work, more responsibility.
Yeah, that's my feeling. My feeling is that as you go up, your development activity is. Where does it say activity? Where's the? I mean, it says activity. I see, but where does it like define? I mean, he literally put pictures of each rock in here, man. See, okay, there's a meme. There was a company retreat where Gav was explaining this to us, and he listed every single rock. He even did things like he was like, can anyone guess the next rock will be? And it's like, I don't know, man. But yeah, where's the activity here? Let's see. Yeah. I don't know the direct answer, but in general, this is true though. You can see here, levels 1 through 3 are like builders. They're going and actually executing stuff. Once you get to higher, you start becoming an architect. Your responsibility starts to actually go down from like individual contributions to more like guiding and mentoring people. So by the time you get to level 6 or even level 7, your role is not to like be writing code, because you're most efficient in like designing and delegating. So that's kind of, I think, the high level idea of your activity going down, your development activity. I'm not sure what agreement is.
Next question. Can
Yeah.
you please just comment how active you are in this fellowship? Like
So-
how much time you allocate for that?
So currently, again, the fellowship is very new. So that's good. Let's move on from these links. So the next thing I'll show you here is there's the element channel, and I'm in this element channel. I think anyone can join this element channel. You can't talk unless you're a fellow. They make you a mod, and only mods can talk. But and there's a link to this whole thing on the chat. So if you want to access it. But I'm in the element channel. I'm responding where I can. You also see me in the forum. Obviously, you see me in these RFCs, like that's kind of piece. There's also these fellowship calls. So there's every month there's a live fellowship call. There's a playlist of the previous calls here, and you'll see my face in all of them. and stuff like that. But the truth is that my direct contribution to the fellowship has been quite low, and there's a number of reasons for that. First is that even though salaries have been approved, they actually still aren't live yet, or maybe they just got live a few weeks ago. So no one from the fellowship has actually been paid yet. And as you might know, I'm not actually employed by Parity, so like I still have to have jobs and stuff like that. So until the fellowship was actually able to pay me, which maybe it can do now, I haven't treated it as like a full-time job, right? I've been just on these things and doing my individual contributions from an open source perspective. But I expect that, the expectation is that if you're in the fellowship, you're basically doing full-time work. And I think there's actually even a conversation about exactly that in this, where was the salaries? Salary?
Fellow level, right?
I'm,
Full-time from fellow.
yeah, that'd be full-time. So exactly, there's even this conversation here. It's like here. Someone said, what did someone say? That no, this is false. A Dan 3 is someone whose contribution matches the expectations of a full-time individual contributor. No, that is false. The manifesto defines expectations of each grade. Even at Dan 1, there's expectation for full-time contribution. And this is why I mentioned this idea that, but Dan 1 salary is not sufficient for living wage. Are they allowed to facilitate their salary with a treasure proposal or companies within the ecosystem, right? And the answer is yes. So, again, what I want to say is, I'm telling you facts, but it's not like I knew the facts. I'm talking and communicating with people in the fellowship, with thought leaders, with things, to figure out things. This is how you work in this ecosystem. There isn't going to be a book which gives you the answer to everything. I am literally, everything I know is because I asked the exact same dumb questions or whatever in these channels and figured it out. You need to just go out there, put yourself out there, and, if you have good intentions and, you're able to, use the information that you've learned previously to make you understand things more, you'll do well. You want to comment on that?
Yeah. What rank do you have to be able to join the calls?
To join the calls, I think at any rank, or maybe rank 1, or I don't know. I think anyone can join the call. The calls are streamed live, so anyone can watch it. For you to be a talking head on that call, maybe you have to be rank 1. But by the way, also we invite people onto the call who aren't in the fellowship, but maybe made it RFC. So they have something to talk about. They can talk about their stuff there. So it's not like a super closed group. More comments, yes.
But based on what he's saying, so it's can you get to the rank 3? You need to work 3 years, right?
You need to, yeah.
So he's saying work 20K for 2 years.
No.
Time.
No, he's saying that I'm correct. That you're expected to facilitate the salary with treasury proposals.
York says yes, the old way of blood, sweat, and tears.
Yes, or the old way.
Oh, okay.
So the whole point is that if you want to be in the fellowship for those 3 years, you can find a perfect role in a parachain team, an ecosystem team, maybe even another blockchain team, maybe a research team like ChainSafe or some other thing, where you're able to do contributions to Polkadot, but get partially paid for that. That's the incentive for you to do that, but then get paid by a full-time company. And hopefully you find a company which not only encourages this, but appreciates it, right? I think this is the way forward. Okay, question, please, go ahead.
Maybe this is a little bit off topic, but can you give a high-level overview of the difference between different organizations like Parity, Web3 Foundation, and now Fellowship? Because they all seem similar because they have the same people, so it's a bit confusing.
Definitely these people, these organizations are very tightly aligned because they have alignment in goals, right? The goal is to make Polkadot a good product for the world and to make it, solve Web3 problems, issues. Now, I can mention those 3 specific companies, right? Fellowship, Parity Tech, and Web3 Foundation. Web3 Foundation is a organization whose primary responsibility was to launch the DOT token. Now that itself, I don't want to go into business and finance, but creating a security and distributing it to the world is a very scary process in the current thing. You get sued, you can get, there's a lot of hairy things that can happen, right? So it's very important to create an organization that's kind of secure in its way to be able to do this and has, all the correct bullet points around what it's offering and what it can deliver, all that kind of stuff, right? Parity Tech is an engineering organization, right? I was never an employee of Web3 Foundation. I was always an employee of Parity Technologies. And even Gav, Gav is the president of the Web3 Foundation, but he is he was the CEO or the chief technology officer, whatever kind of stuff of Parity for a while, right? Or it still is, but his role has kind of changed a little bit. But he's always working in Parity. Parity as an engineering organization has always been an arm's length away from the Web3 Foundation. Parity has never sold a token. Parity has never launched this network. Parity has never built something that we've sold to consumers to say you'll make money off of this thing. Parity is strictly building code, working and engineering stuff, and getting paid as a contractor from Web3 Foundation to do that, right? So again, this is a very common separation for almost all blockchains. There's Solana Labs. There's Cosmos Foundation, there's Cosmos. There's Ethereum Foundation, there's Ethereum, right? There's this separation of the foundation and the engineering org is very normal, and that's just due to the way that laws work in the world, and how organizations take on risk. Finally, the fellowship is supposed to be, in many ways, a replacement for Parity Technologies. I do think that, when I was at the company, I would say it would not be unreasonable to believe that Parity Technologies' goal was to stop existing. And not to literally stop existing, but to stop needing to exist. It may not be today that Polkadot would survive if Parity completely died, but I think we're one step, like a significant step closer to that with the fellowship existing. And as fellowship grows, I think the need for Parity as a specific organization to coordinate and make things happen will become less and less, and that is its goal. And so fellowship is the pathway for people like me, who left Parity, but want to continue to contribute in Polkadot, that I could do so. Like, so this is the pathway for everyone. And I think that, again, like, I would actually encourage many of the engineers joining Parity after you hit that 3-year mark. Is actually better for you, not you, but like it's better for our ecosystem if you were able to take a step away from Parity and do it. Not that doesn't work for everyone. If you have a family, you have kids, you have tax things, whatever, it may not work for everyone. But that would be the best actions for the resilience of Polkadot, right? Okay.
So I did something similar, and I want to see if I understood. So in this case, like the Web3 Foundation would be the holding, and the Parity is the LLC company who can hire people, and the Polkadot is the product?
Yeah, I'm not a lawyer, so it's like, like when you say specific words, I'm afraid to say yes, but like that's the vibe. That sounds like the right vibe.
The foundation cannot hire people, but they.
Well, the foundation does hire people. So the researchers in the Web3 Foundation. There's no really engineers in Web3 Foundation, but there's a lot of researchers and people who are designing the specifications of the protocol and the design of the protocol, and that's all in alignment with the fact that they have sold a token which represents some kind of protocol. Like, they're the ones who are constantly researching on how to make that better, and Parity are the engineers who are actually implementing those ideas. And by the way, it's not like they tell us what to do. It's a very much collaborative effort. Like, when I work with Web3 Foundation, they present really awesome ideas, but sometimes, when they live in their world of like everyone's a PhD and everything is, theoretical, they like design things which are kind of not great for actual implementation. So you work with them and find middle grounds. And that's often where the product you actually see is somewhere in between the collaboration between research and engineering. Okay. So what other links that I have here? I had the Element channel where you can see chat, the calls. We talked about the repo, the organization where you can see things all publicly happening in the space. You can understand the reason why we have the fellowship. You can sympathize with me that I can't offer you a much more clear path forward in this system, but I think you can also understand why that's the case, and I hope that you can understand that we're making bets. Parity and Polkadot has always been unafraid to navigate unexplored waters. Like, I think that, when you do it first, it's the hardest. You have to, every single problem you can run into, you find yourself running into it. I think, in many ways, the fellowship is going to do that, but I think we're going to be better off on the other side for it. We're going to have a first mover advantage because of it. And truly, when we talk about the philosophies of Polkadot, I think this screams the direction. Like, I think, there can be really nothing more evident than what we actually intend to do with this technology than things like this, right? Like, you wouldn't do this in any sane way. This is not sexy to investors. This is not sexy to necessarily attracting developers. It is not supposed to be sexy. It's supposed to be resilient. It's supposed to be in alignment with our philosophies and our goals. I think that actions speak louder than words. Oftentimes, words just actually drown out the facts, right? So I think that if you believe in what I described when I talked about my philosophies of Polkadot and the decisions we make, all that stuff, I think you see where this fits in. We need to make it work. I don't know exactly how yet, but I think that everyone here can be a part in that, right? Okay, should we call it there? Okay, let's end it. Thanks.